So picture this. I'm sitting in this really cute cottage in the English countryside, and it's about 4 years ago. And I'm pretty isolated. I've rented this cottage for the weekend. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no television. Oh, it's not that. It's this little desk on the left here. And it's August, but it's England, so I've got a log fire, and I have to wear a woolly hat when I go outside because, cold. And I'm here to make a big decision. And it's the kind of decision that, even though I didn't know it then, was going to resonate through my whole life. Because to all intents and purposes, I had the perfect life. I had a nice car. I had a 2-bedroom apartment just outside London. I had a good job. I was a management consultant and a work psychologist, and I was paid pretty good money to go to different clients and do interesting projects. I even had my own little flock of sheep that you can see here. They're not real sheep, but this is on my balcony. But it wasn't as perfect as it looked on the outside, because I worked in a very stressful job. I worked a 60-hour week most weeks as a norm. And it was a stressful culture, very political culture. And I also had a couple of health issues. So I have Crohn's disease and I have a chronic pain condition. So even though on the outside it looked pretty good, on the inside it wasn't so great. And all the stress toys in the world, I can tell you, and this is my desk here, and there's a tiny Zen garden on the side, are not enough to get you through that kind of thing. So back to my decision. I'm in this cottage because I've been offered the promotion of my dreams. The promotion that I've been working for pretty much for 10 years. And I'm trying to decide, well, am I taking it? And when they offered it to me, I thought, well, of course. But when they offered it to me, I felt flat. There was no joy when I thought about it. So I sat in that tiny cottage and I made my decision. I went into work on the Monday. Instead of accepting the promotion, I resigned, which was a bit of a shock to them, I will say, and actually to me. And 3 months after that, I was in Thailand. So why did I come to Thailand? Well, it was hot, it was cheap, and it was very far away from England. These were the key criteria. And initially, I was just going to travel for a few months. And I wonder if any of you started your lives like that in this area. Yeah, just going to travel for a few months. But 4 years ago, which is when it was, I started to discover digital nomads. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. Who are these people? They seem to be having a much better time than I am. And as a work psychologist, I'm always interested in the way people work. So I started to explore that a bit more. And I started to build a different life for myself. I created a new independent location life. And I started doing freelance consulting. So I did the same kind of thing that I did in the UK, but I took small projects and I traveled to many different places. I created a personal development blog. I had a travel blog because, of course. And I discovered that I liked writing fiction. So I created the perfect life again. And this time I got it right? So I published my first novel. I traveled to places from Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia, China. I worked in many places. And it was all paid for by clients. And I spent about 6 months on Koh Phangan, hanging out there with my hammock, and 6 months in Chiang Mai. And I would switch between them and travel as I went. And it was the perfect life, I think, except for not. Because fast forward 2 years, so 2 years ago from now, and I'm in the nicest, fanciest hotel that I have ever stayed in. And I have stayed in some nice hotels with clients. So I was in the Ritz-Carlton in Abu Dhabi. And if you've ever been there, it's pretty shiny. This was the view from my window. So this is the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. All the photos are mine, by the way, so excuse the... it's not my best thing. So I'd done over 100 flights that year. And I was pretty tired. I'd consulted internationally. I now had 4 websites, sort of accidentally. I was writing posts for my own blogs and posts for other blogs, like Tiny Buddha and the Huffington Post. And I was exhausted, again. So I was lying in this amazing bedroom, which was huge. I had my own chaise lounge, which is very nice. And I couldn't even go downstairs and enjoy the 5-star food because I was too ill. I was shivering, I had a fever. And I managed somehow to get through the work that the client had paid for me to come 5,000 miles for me to do. But by the time that I got back to Chiang Mai, I went straight to the doctor. I got a very glamorous shot of antibiotics into my bum and a course of antibiotics. And I was told that I had strep throat, which I didn't even know what it was, but it was pretty sucky. And it was the week before Christmas. So that Christmas was pretty quiet for me that year. And what I realized is that it is entirely possible to burn out in paradise. So as Connie said yesterday, wherever you go, there you are. So I would say you take your personality with you. And whatever you're like in your original place, you're going to be like that here. So I was, a little bit neurotic, a little bit work-driven, quite productive, and I just took all those characteristics with me. So I would ask you, how many of you have been ill in a country where you don't speak the language and you've been relying on Google Translate to try and work out with the doctor what's actually wrong, right? How many of you have got tired of fast travel and decided just to base yourself in one country for just, a few weeks because you are so exhausted, right? And how many of you have gone to put up that next photo of a beautiful sunset or a coconut shake, which is pretty good, on Instagram or Facebook, and then thought with a guilty feel in your heart that maybe that actually didn't represent your life in the way that you thought it did? Yeah. Sometimes all the sunsets in the world are not enough. So what strategies and tactics can we adapt and adopt on the road to actually take care of ourselves, to live this awesome and amazing life, these opportunities that we have, in a way that creates health and wellness and happiness in us, as well as seeing all the sights and doing all the things that we want to do? So I have 4 strategies and tactics that I'm going to suggest. And because I'm a little bit geeky, you have a tiny handout, which is kind of cute, where you can follow along or make notes or whatever. But hopefully it will remind you of these when you go away. So the first one actually connects really well to Lydia's speech, which is around knowing your why. And for me, this goes back to, well, why did you become a nomad in the first place? So what was the reason that you became a nomad? And what I found in the 4 years that I've been on the road is that there are about 3 types of people. And maybe it's more. I'd be interested if you come up with more types. So there's the bootstrapper. I would say this conference doesn't have so many bootstrappers. So this is the kind of person who is crushing it, which is one of my least favorite expressions, maybe because I'm British. So they have come to Thailand or whatever country, Bali, to take economic and financial advantage of the country they're in, and they are building a business, and their intention is to make a big splash, make a big business, and then go back to their own country. So they're really in the place that they're in more to take advantage in a positive way of that place. The second one I would call the adventurer. So this is someone for whom travel is the driver. So for them, they're earning money in order to stay on the road. So the money, the work is secondary to the opportunity to travel. And listening to Ben and Jazzy yesterday, I would say that might be the kind of area that they're in. And then thirdly, there's the balance seeker. So this would more be me. So coming out to a place to create more balance in their lives. So to create a life which includes hobbies and interests and passions, as well as their work. So when I was in London, all I really did was work and deal with health issues. So my entire identity was caught up with those 2 things. Whereas now I have a much broader identity that includes a lot more activities. So each of these types is looking for a different kind of lifestyle. And if you know your origin story, so where you came from and which of these suits you, then you can use this to drive strategies and tactics to create health and wellness in your life. You also need to have the right kind of personality. And I would say, if this personality isn't necessarily you, then it gives you the opportunity to know where you might need to put some effort in. So in terms of this lifestyle, and Kavi touched on this yesterday, I think you need things like autonomy, you need to be independent, you need to be goal-orientated, you're probably going to be quite unconventional because you've already made choices which are not the norm. You need to be able to make friends, but also spend time on your own because you might be alone quite a lot. You need to be culturally flexible. There are a number of personality traits that I think are useful. And maybe you have them, maybe you don't. But if you know, for example, so for me, I'm more introverted. I enjoy people, but in smaller scale. So that's something that I can take account of when I'm making connections. So how can we use these kind of strategies? So first of all, you need to do some personal reflection to actually understand what your why is and where you came from. And then for me, I put them into my yearly goals. So every year, I look at my year and I think, what do I want my year to look like? Giving myself some flexibility about that. And I will tap back into my why to create those goals. I also make sure that new activities align with that why. So I'm not brilliant at this because I love taking on new projects, but looking back and saying to myself, okay, remember, Ellen, that balance is what you're going for, and thus not filling my schedule with a million things is a useful thing to do. Then tell people. So the more that you tell the people around you, your loved ones, your friends, the more they can be supportive to you in saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't take on that extra project when your schedule is already full. And then use your why in daily life. So as an example, my word of the year this year is delight. And so I have it as a screensaver. So every time I look at my computer, the word delight comes up, it connects me to that why. So you could have it as your password. We have to have 1 million passwords now. Why not use that in your password? You can have it as your screensaver, etc. So the second area is mastering change fatigue. And this has come up a few times. So the modern world in 2016 is full of change anyway. So in the organizations that I work with, resilience, grit, the ability to manage change is really critical. But for us as well, when we travel, that ability to deal with change is huge. So every time that you move country or you move city, you are immersed in a new world. You have to make 1,000 tiny decisions every moment of every day. And there are new things, new culture, new language, new climate, so many differences that in your own country, your own culture, you've habituated to. So that stuff is already there in the background. You don't even think about it because you know. But in these new cultures, that change fatigue is real. And it's one of the reasons why the longer you're a digital nomad, the more often you'll find yourself settling in a place for a while to give yourself a bit of a break and then traveling. So you can see me here in Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, China, and Dubai. And this is a number of the currencies I happen to have in my wallet at one time. So this uncertainty and ambiguity is something that we need to manage. Don't take it for granted. And there are a number of things, again, that you can do. So for me, one of them is this quite warm and fuzzy idea of finding your comfortable constants. So this is the idea that some things in your life are very helpful if they don't change so much. So if you ring your mum and she always talks about her neighbor Doris, and she always tells you the same story about how annoying Doris is, maybe this is a comfortable constant for you. Tap into that sense of warmth and repetitiveness and the fact that it's always there, and make that a positive, make that an advantage. It can also be television, so watching Game of Thrones or whatever, or a hoodie. Like there's a number of things that it could be, but finding those things that are always consistent and constant for you is really powerful. The next thing is fewer choices and fewer possessions. So as someone who, as I said, took over 100 flights last year, I've done a lot of packing. And what I find is the smaller number of things that I take with me, the less stressful that is. But there's also something about the number of decisions that you make. So we talked about the fact that there are many decisions to be made. Don't beat yourself up if you choose a nice cafe to work in and you go there every morning, because you're already going to be making many different decisions in your area. The next thing is to give yourself periods of stability and constancy. So I ended up basing myself in Chiang Mai because what I found was I was doing so much traveling for personal stuff and for work. I wanted somewhere that I could return to, which felt a bit like home. So in Libby's speech yesterday, where she was talking about having a home base, I found it quite interesting how many people in the room do tend to return to a country quite often. So maybe it's not your home base, but you feel like Bangkok or Bali or wherever is the place that you go to. But also, so again, this is a bit of a personal failing. Like, I like the illusion of control. So I like to create schedules and plans and goal lists, and I have a million to-do lists. And these sometimes give me that illusion of control. Oh yeah, I'm on it because I've got a to-do list. But sometimes my to-do list takes over my life, and it stops me from being flexible. So when I was in Chiang Mai in the first year or so, I'd have this to-do list, which was completely made up and didn't really have anything that I actually needed to do. And someone would say, hey, do you want to come for coffee? And I would say, oh no, I'm far too busy to come for coffee. But it was completely in my head. So you also need to leave yourself some flexibility, no matter how hard you're hustling, to take advantage of the situation that you're in. The third area is making deep connections. So the research says that connections, so friendships, relationships, are the thing that predicts happiness most in our lives. So of all of the different aspects of your life, connection is the thing that can create that happiness. But on the road, it's not so easy. Sometimes, I don't know if you felt like this, it just feels like you're always saying goodbye to someone. So all the time, there's someone who you've made this awesome connection with, and I'm sure that will happen in this room, and then they leave. And you think, oh, another friend, gone off down the road. And one of the positives about this lifestyle is it's surprisingly easy to make friends. So people will connect with you over the fact that you travel, people will be comfortable and happy to talk to you, and I think often skip the small talk. So again, I was talking to some people yesterday, and we were having this discussion that actually, if you live this lifestyle, we move pretty quickly in terms of connecting to people. But I think you need a different approach to connection than you might do in your own country. So some strategies that I can suggest, I'm pretty sure you'll be on top of this first one. So this is about using technology to connect to people. So my mum and my sister say that they speak to me and they connect with me more now than they did when I was a management consultant in London. Because when I was a consultant in London, I had no time. Whereas now, I'll often send them a message or have a Skype with them or connect with them, which makes them happy that I'm still alive, which is all good. I also have an awesome Line group, so I don't know how many people use Line, of some women that I met in Chiang Mai maybe a year ago, 18 months ago. We were only in the same place for maybe 4 or 5 months, but those women I check in with almost every day online. They understand the context, and I think this is really important. So we live a very unusual lifestyle, and it's important to talk to people who get that lifestyle, because if I talk to my mum and my sister or my friends at home, they have very different values and priorities and concerns, which is fine. But in terms of resonating in that way, they're not really going to get it in the same way. So they can't always give me the same emotional support that I might need from people who really understand this lifestyle. So the other way is join a community, and that's pretty much what you've done here. So the friends that you make here will certainly be friends that you can take forward. And I met Kit, in fact, at the World Domination Summit a couple of years ago, and a number of other people. So there are opportunities in the community to get involved. And that would be another strategy that I would suggest, both offering help and asking for help. So you can see in that top one there, this is me volunteering in a Thai old people's recreation centre. We made hats from paper plates. It was very exciting. And so just getting connected with that community has been really interesting and given me an opportunity to connect with the culture in a different way. Asking for help is another way. So I was at a co-working space a few months ago, having a problem with my MailChimp and my WordPress, which again probably you will resonate with. It was driving me crazy. I'd spent like 2 hours on it. And a friend of mine said, you know, Ellen, we're in a co-working space. There are 20 people around you, most of them male, who would be happy to help you. And as it turned out, when I kind of said, can anyone help me? I had a guy fix it within like 5 minutes. And that was very useful. And I made a friend. He felt good about himself. I was happy to get the stupid issue resolved. And it was a useful thing. The other thing that I would say is be prepared to let people go. So one of the unusual advantages is that you might end up with too many friends. So if such a thing is possible. But you can only spread your energy so far. And sometimes people will be in your life for a time, and then they'll move away again. So I had some really good friends in Chiang Mai. They've now moved back to the States, to a town that I probably will never go to. They're not great at keeping in contact. Maybe I'll see them one day, maybe I won't. But in terms of investing energy in that friendship, it's probably not the best place. And so performing a friendship audit, which is an unusual way of looking at friends, but something that I think is worth doing when you have, 800 Facebook friends and so on and so forth, to decide, well, who are the important people in your life? And don't try and be friends with everyone. Some people you just don't resonate with, and that's fine. So the fourth and last strategy is around making active choices. So you've already done that. You've already decided to come away from the 9 to 5, to move away from your country. You've made a conscious decision to be a bit different from the norm. But now you need to carry that through and do that in other places. So sometimes people start this lifestyle and they get quite quickly overwhelmed. So, there's 100 projects that you can do. Lydia talked about shiny object syndrome, which I'm definitely guilty of. There's many things that you can do, and you're also thinking, I need to earn enough money. And so people come to wherever the country that they've gone to, and they get overwhelmed by all this stuff. Or they try and visit every single tourist site in like a 2-day period and go out drinking all night. And this kind of hustle or this kind of lifestyle is not that effective. You're not a 9 to 5er. You have choice and flexibility. You can do things differently. So you need to make conscious choices about the way that you spend your time. So go back to your why. So a couple of months ago, I got into a bit of overwhelm. So I had 5 different open fiction book projects on the go for good reasons. But I was trying to do them all at the same time, and I was getting into a bit of overwhelm. And when I stepped back and had some quite challenging conversations with people close to me, what I remembered was that I'm a balance seeker, and that the whole point of this lifestyle is to be someone who has some space in my life. And that all of those projects and tasks on my to-do list were all self-imposed. I didn't actually have to do any of them. There's nobody telling me what to do. So that's the first thing, to schedule in work, but also the downtime. Give yourself some time off. Take care of the basics. So this is something I think people often forget as well. So when you move to a new country, your sleep, your food, your exercise, your hydration, all of these things need attention. If you've come to Thailand and you haven't been in Bangkok before, it's a very wet heat. The climate is quite different. You need to drink quite a lot. This is a small thing, but dehydration will affect you. So taking care of the basics and making conscious choices about them is really important. It's okay to daydream. So make conscious choices to build in space, to stare out of the window, or go to an art gallery, or give yourself some space to be bored. So a lot of the research in psychology around this topic says if you don't have those blank periods where you're not on your phone or you're not on your technology, you're not kind of filling your brain with stuff that's not particularly important, you're going to be less creative. So you need to give yourself those spaces. And don't forget where you are. So again, in terms of conscious choices, one of the saddest things I think I see in digital nomads is people who end up in Starbucks for 12 hours working. and I think to myself, why did you come here? Like, for instance, you're in Chiang Mai, you're in Bangkok. Starbucks is fine if you like that kind of thing, but there are so many fantastic independent coffee shops, for example. But also, there's an entire culture and country out there which is different. So go to places you might not normally go to. Do things differently. Fill the creative well. So again, in terms of building creativity, which is going to help your self-care and your productivity, giving yourself the opportunity to do new things is also very powerful. So the strategies again, know your why. So I think this kind of conference helps you to get to, well, why did I come here in the first place? Hear other people's stories. Understand other people's whys. Master change fatigue. So understand this idea and be kind to yourself around this idea that you are in an environment which is causing you, stress is maybe a bit of a strong word, but it's causing you brain fog and overwhelm just by the very nature of you being there. So it's not even anything that you've done, it's just you're in this new place. Make deep connections. So focus your energy and your time on the connections that are going to bring you joy. Don't just spread your energy and make Facebook friends with everyone, but really cultivate and nurture connections that are going to benefit you. And make active choices. So make conscious decisions about who you are and what you're doing with your time. So how to follow this advice? So I'm one of those people who's always, so what at the end of a talk. And for myself also, I listened to my speech or I wrote my speech and I thought, well, so what? So, I want you to go away and put some of these strategies into action. That's why you get the tiny handout. So the idea is, or what I would suggest, is to read through the handout again when you've got a moment and just pick one or two different items from the list. Maybe something that resonated with you, maybe something where you thought, oh, yeah, okay. Maybe something as small as I'm not drinking enough water right now. But pick something, and then over the next week, make tiny experiments with it. So don't make it a big, to-do list. As they say, don't should on yourself. But just make it something where it's a fun part of your life. And be your own best friend. So the way that we talk to ourselves, so our self-narrative in our head, tends to be very hard, very harsh. You would never talk to a friend in that way, the way that you talk to yourself in your head. So in terms of thinking about this stuff, talk to yourself as if you were your best friend. Reframe the narrative in your head to a much more positive one. And earn this lifestyle. We are incredibly privileged, incredibly privileged. We are some of the people in the world who have financial freedom, who have the freedom to travel. We have passports that we can do that on. Being your own boss means you actually have to be your own boss. So take responsibility for yourself. Be your own best friend and be a taskmaster. And make sure that you truly are in a position to take advantage of this lifestyle. So, there is no perfect, there is only now. We have some of the most amazing opportunities on the planet. So go astonish, be amazing, do awesome, but most of all, be kind to yourself. Thank you.